focus. Yay, this is our first one of 2025. And also my first one from Virginia, correct? I think so. Anyhow, welcome to our Thursday poetry celebration. My name is Malika Albrecht, and I'm the founding editor of Redheaded Stepchild. We're behind on our publishing, but we're going to go live again with the issue soon. And let me introduce you to our poet for tonight that I'm super excited about, Helene Fisher. I'm going to do a brief bio, and then I'm going to turn it over. I'm glad y'all are here. H.E. Fisher is poet, writer, writing coach, editor, and health literary advocate. H.E. is the author of experimental hybrid collection, Sterile Field, which was published by Freelines Press in 2022, and a poetry chapbook, Jane Almost Always Smiles, Moonstone Arts Press in 2022. H.E.'s work has appeared in multiple magazines that I adore, Tupelo Quarterly, Broadsided Press, DMQ Review, and Whale Road Review, and Anti-Heroin Chic. H.E. was awarded the 2019 Stark Poetry Prize in Memory of Raymond Patterson at City College of New York, has been nominated for multiple Best of the Net and the Pushcart Prize, and is a recipient of Poets Afloat residency. I am so excited that you're here, and I know we get to hear from not only previously, the recent publications, but also a new manuscript you're working on. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, I thought I would read new stuff tonight, mostly. I think I'll read
Love it.
just one or two from Sterile Field, but why not read new stuff? This is all from the manuscript in progress. These are poems that have been published in journals since we're recording. Figured I would. But thank you so much, Malika, for inviting me. And I'm so glad that Juan Mobley had made introductions. And I've so enjoyed coming to the readings here to hear Juan and Catherine Weld, among others. It's wonderful to be here tonight. And this is a good week for poetry and for community. So thank you for making space for this. So I'm going to dive in. These are poems from, as I said, a manuscript in progress called Good Fakes. And of the poems I'm reading tonight, I guess I'm a little mad these days. So these are a little more of the political ones. We'll just sort of dive in. And let me just set my timer, and feel free to wave or send out a flare if we're getting to over time or anything. This is called Made in America. I am no one in America without a job. Who would I be without one? Like a god, hate, or war, not meant to fathom. Certainly, I would have written more. Every decision I've made and make takes daily costs into consideration. I think about my farm-born dog, sold with a damaged spine and pain, who bit as much as possible, a bee, a stone, my left wrist during pregnancy. If I ask, would you tell me how much you make? Every day, I think about economies of sky, flowers, air, so much nature owned, leveraged, leased in a fossil fuel world. Today, I am cocky and think about free will and my own economy. I've worked, I work, I am. In my 20s, I catered, served food and cocktails. I've earned in the film industry for nonprofits, cleaned other people's toilets, taught on the books and off. I've had cruel bosses, a few were kind. I've had nothing, I've had enough. Like my dog, I am overbred, reassembled repeatedly. Into what have I been made? To live in America is to be minted, to orphan oneself. This is the title poem from the book, Good Fakes. Good Fakes. My mother owned strands and strands of flapper-length pearls. Your fingers, she said, have good moons, prized in her day, fashionable to leave unpainted. First Lady Jacqueline Lee, Jackie Bouvier, Kennedy Onassis, Jackie O, as she was later called, even her name pearled, wore a triple strand they say was simulated. You can buy a knockoff almost anywhere. I bought myself a pair of cultured earrings like angry sex, like sucking vulgar caviar in the back booth at the Russian tea room. Just another aphrodisiac, another shell to slip the knife into and pry open. Are these real? I once asked my mother, lifting a strand from a Wedgwood box, a gift to her from a friend after, I don't know which, surgery. Are fake pearls less real than real ones? The way her face changed when my oldest brother became a bird singing to himself, how every word of his lyric held pearls of wisdom. I think of pearl divers tending fragile bivalve spheres in netted cages underwater. Few mollusks survive. She bought herself a yellow diamond, stainless steel cookware, a fur jacket on sale, Calvin Klein's in the ponds, bought herself a little time with every purchase. She told me she graduated college. My aunt says she never finished high school. Is this a poem about my mother's lies? I thread wax silk through the rounds of nacre, make knots between them. Decay, 1981. Every train starts in a tunnel before departing. Every window of every train reflects the people on it. My face looks back at me. It is not hyperbole to say I am surprised to see myself. The car smells of commuter cocktails, cigarettes, and newsprint. A young man seated across from me, about my age, faces forward, then turns away, corkscrewing his body toward his reflection, eyes locking onto something I cannot see. His mouth forms a circle I pray into. Years later, I stream a movie about zombies on a train and remember him and my prayer unanswered. Unlike in the movie, there's no hero on the train to rescue me from the dead. The young man's eyes glide slightly to the left, aligned with mine, window to window, reflection to reflection. The darkness of his mouth I enter is mine. I am dead for you, mother. I am dead for you. He nods, yes, as if I'd spoken out loud. The conductor stops at my desk, asks for my ticket, punches it. One of these days I'm going to write funny poems, but yeah, you know, one of the things that's been on my mind a lot is this started, I started writing this during the pandemic, right at the end, in the height of the pandemic. And then through the election, you know, so all these things that have been happening in the world keep sort of gliding themselves in there, but seem to be so rooted in relation to my own childhood, because my mom was a political activist. And so I have this funny relationship to, when I think of war, I think of my mother as a line from one of the poems in this new collection. This is called Arms. I went to a gun shop to buy pepper spray. There were 7 men in the store and 1 missile, a letter that began, "Dear Saddam," white painted on its body. One employee sat on a stool aiming an assault rifle at an invisible target. Firearms lined the walls like guitars at a music store. The salesman offered advice, said not to buy a sheath because it takes too long to get the canister out, showed me how to flip the safety, pull the trigger. I buy 2 for my daughter who wants protection on late night trains in DC, where she studies law. Displacement, NASA confirmed a meteor exploded over Pittsburgh like 30 tons of TNT. Some thought it was a bomb. A knock on the door the day of eviction. On another day, a bridge fell. There is barely a wake at the point where the three rivers meet. Locals talk about a fourth river geologists say is an aquifer formed by ancient glaciers tapping water. There is more water now. The weight of ice melt and underground saturation retilting Earth's axis. A city can drown. Some bodies seek gravity, never find it, never land. I had an aunt, Doris. I don't know, my aunts have shown up a lot in my work lately. I had a lot of them. And she was a psychotherapist who used to say, I used to think people should work out their fears. And then one day I decided they should make their fears as big as they can make them, because whatever you think is going to happen is usually not as bad as we feel they will. So this is for Aunt Doris. It's called Aunt Doris Said, Make the Fear Big. It would be no surprise if missiles, from the plural missilia, gifts thrown by emperors to people on the streets, will soon be aimed at the moon, shot down, its stones used to make cities bigger. Someone's always deciding they need land more than people or homes. What walks or stands is ground to white powder like a drug, hates opiate. Doris said, if you make the fear big enough, whatever you think will happen won't be as bad as expected. Look into the whites of children's eyes, the walls they hardly knew, pressed like flowers. I heard a eulogist at a funeral say his daughter was as big as libraries of song. A friend removed his brother's urn from its cardboard box, took a handful of ash, tossed it over his shoulder for luck like salt. How big can something be once it's gone? Let the snow on the branch get heavy, Doris said. This is called A Brief History of My Relationship to Rules. Take some water. My fear of school started young. As soon as my mother told me teachers made her write with her right hand, she said that was the rule if you were a lefty. I am left-handed. The notion that someone could make you do something your body wasn't meant to do, that they could change you, prepared me for history, news reports, bullies. It was different for my generation. I was allowed to use my left hand. We learned cursive in second grade, but I broke my left wrist falling off my brother's bike, which was too big, and couldn't write at all. I tried learning with my other hand, but never did. When I write, I print, except for my signature, which for many years, even when signing checks, I intentionally wrote as an X. This poem has a line from the Polish poet Czesław Miłosz. He's one of my favorite poets. It's called My Family Was Organized Around War. My father's shame for never having fought. 3 draft-age brothers in lottery. I sat on pale blue and green linoleum with thin gold glittered stripes forming enemy lines. I made toys speak, they spoke back, the world I believed. I once read that Czesław Miłosz watched silent films in Vilnius, little truths pantomimed in Mary Pickford's eyes, Buster Keaton's pratfallen body, the face of a house collapsing around him. Did you know he did his own stunts? Most of the celluloid was destroyed. Miwash wrote about the people in a town, how no pain can be experienced by the body spared them. Executioners and victims, crimes that over time became vague, misremembered, missing. History like an address without a street number. All my stories were conflicts. Play without battle dress was nothing. Silence crucial to every plot, every casualty. I work with a lot of students who are high school age or college age. And this year, or 2024 in particular, I just had a lot of students who were extraordinary writers and very prolific. It took years, but finally I had the kids who were all like in the lit scene at their high schools and producing lit magazines and stuff. And a lot of interesting work came out of there as a result, but also sort of started to filter into my work a little bit. And this poem is called Tutoring During the Anthropocene. My student and I read a story about a cowboy who discards his poisoned horses into a river. Even clouds rot in this wet time. River rises. We learn of a moon phasing in reverse, boneless fish, dirty remains, fire and remorse, and something further downstream, unmoving. Who or what it is or why it's there doesn't seem to matter. I am struck by how few questions she has. My student won't kill a spotted lanternfly, though it's what the Department of Agriculture wants: protect crops, livelihoods, revenue. My student plans to be a doctor, save lives. He asks why he must draw a line. Lanternflies visit my deck in fists like clouds. I've heard vinegar works well as a weapon. I see one outside my kitchen window caught in a spider's web and cheer, feel shame. Spiders are one of lanternflies' few predators, but making silk cages is slow work, and there isn't enough for genocide. I wonder about species that don't have predators. The US Department of Defense has more than $2 trillion to spend in 2024. Lanternflies are gray and red, like wool camp blankets, sturdy and beautiful. Like king's wives, beauty won't save them. My student cries during the lesson, my only student who has cried. I admit I'm afraid of lanternflies and my students' tears. Packets of petunia and wildflower seeds sit unopened, waiting to be planted on the deck I won't go out to. My deck is too small for more than a cafe table and 2 chairs, now covered in moss and a half dozen empty clay pots. I just have 2 more poems. I'm going to read one from Sterile Field. It's called Never Fully. It's not one that I've read very often, but it felt sort of right for tonight somehow. Never Fully. Once, I traveled to the prairie where bison graze on grassland and weather is shuffled and dealt like a cheater's deck, floaters, marks, and bends of snow and hail, thunder and sun. I must have swallowed a seed on the prairie and it grew because I can see the magnitude of what came near extinction. My 7th grade teacher told the class bison were dying like the dinosaurs. Bad weather, she said. Even the National Park Service won't say why. I have learned not to trust governments, teachers, or textbooks. Maybe this is why I hold tight to godless miracles, especially the apt ones, like when the stars lowered themselves outside my bedroom window and clung like insects against the glass the night my mother died. Doctors don't like magical thinking, underestimate the abracadabra and truth magical thinking uncovers. And there is nothing sick about joy or truth. Once something white-gray appeared in my garden under the crabapple tree, too still and shiny to be bone, shell, or worm. I dug at it with my finger and found a plastic figurine of a bison no bigger than a rosehead. Perhaps an old discarded toy or a child's whim to bury. I brought the figurine inside and washed it, set it on the windowsill above my sink, and as I scrub dishes, wash vegetables or my hands, I am reminded of how some things are never fully gone, even when some try to make it so. And I'll read one last poem. This was the first poem written for the new manuscript, which is really mostly about distortions. It's called Cow Distortion While Driving Upstate in Tompkins County, New York. And again, thank you so much. This is so lovely, Malika. So it's just nice to sit and read poems, and I can't wait to hear everybody else's. A billboard shaped like a cow is in a distant field. Or I am wrong. I pull over, let the car idle. The grass bends. Whatever her cells, living cells, tell me is enough. She is not a cutout. She is still. I envy her to stand in the traffic of the wind. I marvel at so thin a line between life and object. Is that how human shoots human? A belief a being is a thing? She helps me understand. She does not move, lets me know I do not know the last time I was still. The cow sees in color, but not red. The grass is green. She has panoramic vision. I have blind spots. I drive alone another 3 hours downstate. No radio, no podcast, no news. Thank you.
Helene, oh my gosh, I want to get all of us on screen and have us have a chance to talk. Y'all can unmute and certainly jump in with conversation and just take a moment to thank Helene for reading those poems. Those are the poems I needed to hear tonight.
Fabulous. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Thank you.
Thank you.
That
My
was
goodness.
amazing. Bravo.
And I like the one
It was
about
a lovely
Antarctica.
reading too.
Oh, thank you.
So does anybody have any questions before I jump right in with some of the, yeah, it was a lovely reading. Cindy just said lovely reading, a great combination of interesting facts and poetic lines. And then somebody else talked about your voice when you read, how that works really powerfully with the work that you're reading.
Oh, thank you.
I was also struck by, I don't know why, but I was really struck by it's a sense of spatial awareness. And I don't think I've been acutely aware of that in most readings, but I felt like a keen sense of spatial awareness and a tactile experience and almost like a movie panorama at different times. I thought, how do you do that? Is that something that comes naturally to you? Is that something that you've cultivated? It's not just the details in the way the poem is written. For me, it was a very embodied experience. And I don't know, did other people have that?
That's very excellent observation.
Well, that's fascinating. I don't really know what you mean, but sure. What do you mean?
I think it's something so exacting, and it's like having a room built in your poems, or the scene set in a way that feels like I'm moving. I have a spatial awareness of where I am. It's fascinating. I'd have to look back at it to see what built it, but it's fabulous.
Well,
I mean, what
thank
a
you.
gift.
That's so interesting. I have to think about that. It's interesting because I have a wee background in screenwriting, but
I wondered.
I think it's funny because I've worked hard to try to describe things. I know that sounds ridiculous, but you know, the whole notion of showing, don't telling kind of thing. I mean, I've really, that is something that I appreciate in other people's work, and I'll read a description. I'm like, how do they do that? And so that,
That's probably why you have it. There's an exacting, I felt like there was an exacting drive to really create something for the reader. And so perhaps that aspiration that you have is, you know, flourishing in your work. That's awesome.
thank
Yes,
you.
Lynn.
I think Helene sets it up from the get-go with the title. We're instantly centered. We know where we are. And that is an amazing gift.
Thank
Yes.
Wish I had it.
you. Well, I'm going to send you a poem I just wrote, and you can help me title it, because it keeps me, literally will keep me up at night. It's like a gift. I don't know if other people experience this when the title comes first. Or
That's a fabulous
or
thing.
it
But
shows itself. Yeah, or it shows itself to you. You know, the poem teaches you something, and you know, it's like, here I am. You know, showtime. You know, yeah, and it really will
yeah,
bother
Laura just
me.
wrote titles are so hard, and I would have to agree with that. But I think that Lynn's insight of how you you know, I heard one teacher used to always say, well, that's the most important real estate that you have. And I'm like, yeah, you know, that's great for people that it comes naturally to, but I have to really write some bad ones before, you know, and I just keep waiting.
I like the imagery because, you know, it's very vivid. I could picture the train. She talked about the window, people through the window, and then the bill. I love the cow and the billboard. And just, you could visualize it. And it sort of, that's why I said you throw in, you know, poetic stuff with, you know, my mother said that and it was fact, you know, and I like that combination of intellectual and image.
Oh, thank you.
Great way to put it.
You know, I think your poems are very much like a conversation. You know, there's this connection that you make with the people that are listening to your poetry.
Well, this is fascinating. Thank you. I mean, it's really incredible to get that kind of feedback, because I don't know, you know, I know that may sound disingenuous, but I mean that. Like, I'm just kind of in my little vacuum, you know, in that little computer world that we all enter into. Or I don't write in longhand, so I'm, you know, and I don't have that kind of perspective on it. I mean, I truly don't. And so like my concerns are sort of different concerns, I guess. I don't know. I'm just trying to get something down on the page and hope that the poem itself tells me what it wants to be about. Because I find that if I'm certainly not the first person who says this, that if I go in, you know, I'm going to write a poem about this, about my mother cooking, it backfires every single time. You know, it's just sort of, it's flat, at least for me. The poems that work best is when there's some sort of intention at the start. Something got me to sit down and write something. It might even just be a word that I like. But it's when I'm discovering things on the page that it starts to cook. Sort of writing as unintentionally as possible. That's what I mean. I don't know if that's really what I mean, but I think it's what I mean. It's just sort of go, you know, it's not like free writing, but it's sort of like free writing. When I get out of my own way, it works best to write. And
I think that resonates with a lot of us. You know, I do. And I, there was somebody just put something down that I thought, yeah, Trudy said there's an immediacy to these poems, visual and visceral. And I think that is part of that pleasure or discovery, that journey or that meditative experience, however you might say it for your own writing practice, that we are resonating with. And Helene, I think that's one of the benefits of having like a Zoom reading, is that we can kind of talk about how the poem hits. And I don't think that's why I love sending the chat section later, is because I think everyone who's read here has been surprised to see what was written in the chat section.
Yeah, that's
Because
kind of
I think
delicious.
oftentimes we don't know how it hits. We don't, you know.
I think you're saying something that's really important, which is it's very different to read in a Zoom reading or in a live reading than it is in a workshop setting. I think that the purposes are different, right? And so the feedback is, you're not going to sit here, well, maybe you will, to give me line edits.
Yes.
You know,
Well,
well, that can happen. But go right ahead. But it is such a different thing to read and put it on its feet.
Well, you know what's funny? I have the joy of being in a workshop with Helene, so I get to meet a lot of these poems when they're being born. So first of all, it's great to hear them, but I think from what a lot of people are saying, I think, added to the fact that she does capture these things so beautiful, I think it's a good masterclass. And don't dismiss or discard the images. Don't decide that something's not important. Like if you remembered it, like trust it. Right. I think that happens in your work a lot, Helene, that really brings it, to where it is. It's great.
So glad you're here, Anne. Thank you. Actually something happened in class this week, which was when I sent the poem to the workshop class, so Jennifer Franklin's class, I sent all the drafts. I just sent the whole darn document. It was really like lifting my skirts. I would normally in any other situation be somewhat mortified, except these are mostly writers who've known me for years. So whatever, read whatever you want to read. But so they got to scroll. And MA and a few others are like, that line, the first line of that earlier draft is actually much more direct and was sort of, so it was really, she's right. I was so nosy and looked at all the drafts.
I know. I love that.
It's actually really helpful. I mean, I wouldn't recommend sending every draft each time, but it was like, oh yeah, sort of it was like pulling back the curtain on my process, and realizing that the new first line was totally really probably overwritten or wasn't really what I wanted anyway. So it made me kind of look and say, well, revision is such a huge part. The other side of writing without trying to, quote unquote, edit myself initially is that then I'm revising a lot, tweaking and refining.
Can I say
And that sometimes we can go ahead. Marilyn, go ahead.
I wanted to say one of the things I really like about your work, aside from that fantastic observation about embodying a space, is that you very naturally introduce and manage somehow very topical issues, particularly environmental issues. And I have to say that as somebody who's tried to write about them, and most people I see, it becomes very shrill and maybe like what you were saying when you start out with an issue. And for you, it's like sitting around the kitchen table. It is the most reasonable introduction of it into the images of the poem. And I think it works and brings a lot of that immediacy to your work.
Well, thank you. This from someone who's Marilyn is like unbelievable at conjuring landscapes and so forth. So that's means a lot to me. I guess
I love that insight.
I want to say the same thing because I've read both of your books and I love them. And they're political and yet they come from such different angles. Like I was really struck by the balloon poem in Sterile Field and how that one so moved me and it so resonated with my own political beliefs around around that. And yet it was humorous and light, and you are able to carry multiple images through a poem successfully, particularly in this reading tonight, which I noticed more than in reading your book off the page. So I just want to say that it's really great to hear you read in
Thank
person.
you, Julian. I'm so glad you're here. Julian and I have met each other on the internet, and I don't think we've ever met in person.
No, we haven't.
Close, pretty much.
Ah.
Right? Yeah, it's fascinating. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. And that poem, the balloon poem, which I mean, Marilyn would know too, or anyone who's read the book, no one would publish except for the press that Three Lines, published it. But it was I had one environmental magazine, like she was freaked out. She's like, can you say that? I was like, I am saying it because it's what we are doing. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
And that poem is exactly what the world needs.
So says you, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
agreed. I mean, that I felt like these were the poems I needed to hear today, and how you navigate. I think that's what Marilyn and Jolene were both pointing out. Is it's very powerful. It's very graceful, and that can be a hard thing to do when we're writing about something that we feel passionate about, or that is considered a risky topic, or and getting them published can be an issue. But I think that's where intuitively the poet decides, this is what I want to say.
I wonder, because just in, so this Sterile Field came out in 2022. So I would have been submitting that specific poem like in 2021, 2022, right? Before the book was accepted for publication. But I think so much has happened since then in the world regarding climate change and the climate crisis, that I wonder if it would be accepted today as an individual poem. In the way that what used to be considered experimental, like I don't think that Sterile Field would even be considered an experimental book anymore. It was at the time, but I think that there's been such a shift in presses and their point of view. I'd be curious if MA and Laura and others here who write experimental work would agree with that. But what's experimental is, that's a whole class, right? To think about. But it's interesting how tastes change, but so do kind of what we're willing to center as publishers and as writers.
Isn't there an anthology that's got a call for submissions right now, Karen and Regina? I think y'all were in the Hellbender gathering. I can't remember who's asking. I'll probably try to look it up. Do y'all remember? It was it was an anthology. They were having a call for submissions, and that's Helene, that's what I would say is that you're right that now a lot of the topics that a couple of years back would have been like, I'm not touching that, are being focused on and being rightfully looked at, and even today you think about all the friends that we have in LA and just the horror of friends that I know personally who have lost everything. Their home is gone, and it's just it's horrific. And then we just went through that in Western North Carolina. I mean, Poets for Science, that is the link. Laura, thank you. I'll try to see if I can get it at one point on there, but Poets for Science. Yeah, look at you. Yeah, thank you, MA. Yeah, Nature 4 times. It's a call for submissions, Poets for Science. Y'all are amazing. Everybody might enjoy that link and looking at that crossover, that connection. It's beautiful to see so much possibility. So my sense is we are ready for open mic, and if I don't call your name or I've neglected something, please let me know. But we're going to start with Jolene, and I will spotlight. And Helene, just thank you so very much. That was a gorgeous.
Thank you. So appreciative. Thank you.
It's so great to hear you read. So should I go? Okay, I'm going to read.
Me and
Now,
perfect.
this book came out this year, Slow Now with Clear Skies, which I wrote a lot of the poems during the pandemic. And given the fires in LA right now, I'm going to read Fires Burn Our Tomorrows, which I wrote somewhere during the COVID time, the pandemic time. I'm grateful for that final box of nectarines from Rama Farm late summer before the fire burned their buildings to the ground, swept through their orchard. The inner heat, oh so sweet, nectarines warmed me through a blistering year. We know all has changed. We will ourselves into this new world, climate in disarray, a world filled with disbelievers, a wild and free world where only the grounding of cherries, peaches, nectarines, melons, the countdown of fruits from early wild salmon berries, raspberries, blackberries, then blueberries will buoy us. Fields swelter, taking our bounty, our tears alive with sorrow. Only the sweet fruit of summer will save us, captured savor against winter's cold ice. We are an ungrateful tide, expressing disbelief against this earth's plenum, bountiful as a basket of luscious ripe strawberries, a variety that no longer exists. So many children will burn in our fires of disbelief. They will never know the first taste, the burst and pop that makes us smile, that protects us from storms that steal tomorrow's pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, Lord. Wow, that hits. Julie, make sure you check the chat section. I want to, there's a whole bunch of comments for you.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
so many powerful lines that we were all appreciate that. I have to say, those that have attended, Helene read at our open mic. Our open mic is always fire. Lynn, I'm coming to you.
Thank you.
You.
This is called Sitting in Church, Wool Gathering. Sweet smelling woods, full of dandelions. I'd rather stay outside. So many people I don't know. They all say, hello, and my, how you've grown. They all stare at me. Everyone knows Grandma. I hear them whispering, Betty's girl, and how it's too bad about Grandpa. Don't they know I can hear them? Sitting in the small rural church, the pews are uncomfortable and forbidding to the squirming of children. As I lean back, the back of the wooden seat squeaks. Anytime I move, there is protest. I count the coughs and throat clearings, look at the stained glass windows, think of the Nancy Drew book I'd rather be reading. I am piously present while altogether absent. Grandma sings horribly. She sings horribly, and she's loud. She's tone deaf and hard of hearing, and it's agony sitting with her, resisting the urge to giggle. Out of the corner of my eye, I see people rolling their eyes. Maybe they want to giggle too. When it's over, I walk until I reach the church door. Then I run down the steps and out into the warm, sweet air. Thank you.
That's fabulous, Lynn. I think piously present. It's piously present. It's going to be like that's sticking with me. I love how you have a way of capturing like the wisdom of youth or being outside and embodying this younger person looking around going, don't they know I can hear them? It's just wonderful. Regina, I'm coming to you.
Lynn, you gave me a prompt for a poem. You don't know it. When I get it done, I'll share it with you. Wonderful, wonderful. So this month is the month, although I think about this person frequently, in which we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. And it's interesting because it's kind of juxtaposed with, I have a book coming out at the beginning of February entitled Whispers from the Multiverse. And so just thinking about the past and the present, what is going on now. I think about the poems that I wrote when I really first started to write in earnest, for publication back at the beginning of COVID. And when I think about those things, what comes to mind is this concept of Sankofa, that there's so much that we need to go back and get, because there are going to be some things that we're going to have to deal with one way or another. When I think about the one way or another, I think about Worcestershire, who is a refugee who is now a Londoner. And she wrote a poem called Home. And in her first line, in her first stanza, she says, "No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well." But as I even think about that, I think about this alternate focus on a similar idea. Sankofa, we are the children of the gods. If someone's running away, it's not going to be us. And I kind of feel like that's where we kind of are right now. And I feel like we're going to have to make some decisions that we just, I can't even fathom making. The name of this poem is For Those in the Struggle. Listen, all ye people who are from peoples who have come from earth and bone, who have worn sackcloth and ashes, ye and they who are full of blood and salted water that stream from the most convenient orifices, lest ye think that the struggle is yours alone. Look around at the flesh that surrounds and know that we struggle together. For some among you will lead and some will be led, as our ancestors were, across the Ivory Coast, in Jewish ghettos, in Roman prisons, in labor camps, internment camps, death camps, in the dens of lions or lying with the enemy. They, we, that struggle and live and die and rise again. Today, I think of one people who were in a struggle, a great fight to stay free, and then to stay alive, and then to win a war, and then to survive the faux freedom inflicted by another people who struggled with the fear of the newly falsely freed, tied them to trees, brought to their knees for an eternity. Until the God who saw the weeping and gnashing mixed up a recipe for a man who sought to free another man and woman, a man who knew that he was not greater than the son of he who made him. But through him, he, Martin Luther King Jr., sought to alter the struggle of those whose spirits were distended from the malnourishment of a diet lacking in justice, replete in exclusion and isolation from the dream of all those who struggle to achieve. And lest we flesh-weary souls, sick with the rejoicing of the victory, forget the captivation, humiliation, emancipation, no 40 acres, just an observation. Segregation, degradation, King's motivation, some integration, lyrical, spherical, academic, vocational amalgamation, lest ye forget, forgetting creates a monster, which is blind in its strike, unbiased in its venomous bite, despises the yellow, brown, black, and white, cloaks in the tapestry of intemperate thought and speech, and I must stop before I say what I cannot. For all in the struggle, learn from the struggle of all, lest ye struggle in vain. Thank you.
Hells yes. Oh, Regina, I hope you go to that chat section. One thing I don't think just so powerful to hear it read, but the repetition of the E sound, that is ecstasy. Oh, that was just beautiful. Just beautiful. Okay, Karen, coming to you. I love this
Well,
open mic.
I would like to go after somebody other than Regina. That was awesome, Regina. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Whew. All right. Well, I'm going to offer up a tarot card poem because I'm just always looking for some inspiration anywhere. And apparently it doesn't always happen. So this is when the Muse's Wheel of Fortune tarot card does not float my boat. I'm at least trying to wade my way through into some kind of possible meaning. This tarot card reverse does not impress me. Upside down or right side up, the woman pictured here just does not feel like me. And yet, who else would this she be? There are 4 of these me's here, each posing round the wheel. One north, one east, one south, one west. I'm guessing each position here must represent an energy. So north is earth, and east is air, and south is fire, and west is water. Spirit here I deem the wheel itself to be. Each me is dressed identically. Same face, same body, attitude. I'll play along for long enough to maybe get a poem here. We are jaded, are we not? We're posing. We're so posing all over this wheel. We're right side up and upside down and side to side. Each one of we is posing clothed in silky, thin-strapped, copper-colored, slinky camisole, in sassy pedal pusher pants in autumn rust, and nude-tone high-heel pumps. One of we is squatting at the top of Fortune's wheel. This is some kind of power pose, I must suppose. I seem to have things well controlled from here. I should mention here, my hair is black and stylish, very short and pressed. My lips are reddest red. This seems some kind of power pose, I must suppose, or should I? Every tarot card pull is not necessarily anything more than a flip of a card or a spin of a wheel, a not very good wheel.
Do you, Karen? If you go look at the chat section and see how that poem landed, because it's fabulous. It's fabulous, and I think all of us really admired the humor. I really liked the insights and the one of we's. I just thought it was fabulous. So good. Allie, I'm coming to you.
All right. I just want to thank Helene for that amazing reading. Like what a treat that was this afternoon. Every poem was just like hit after hit after hit. It's like we got a best of album. Fantastic. I have a less political poem today for you, and a little moment of fantasy, I guess. A little pause. This was recently published in Cool Beans Lit. This is Dragonflight. We order a flight of dragons, cloud 9, black dragon, silk, refined creatures all. Cloud dragon dozes in its murky cave, dripping glitter stalactites, while black dragon picks mushrooms and silk dragon weaves around your throat like a ribbon. Yes, they are 3 different sakes, but we soar over apple orchards on a crisp morning. The air is toothy with the threat of rain, the ghost of blossoms. Our toes dip into soft, dark earth, disturbing a fairy ring. We toast our good fortune with drippy, garlic sweet slathered wings and cabbage pickles like the ridges on a dragon's back. All the stars are made of chili as we glide over umami seas.
Almost everybody put the air is toothy with the threat of rain. That really did it. That's gorgeous. Thank you very much, Allie. And don't forget to check the chat section. I have Cindy next, and just to let y'all know, then Cal, then Donna, then Jonathan. If I've missed anybody, send me a quick message and we will add you in. Cindy, I'm coming to you.
This has been a great reading, very inspiring. My poem, I'm going to read one of my I Am the Girl poems. It's part of a series I started many years ago, I think before the pandemic. But during the pandemic, I threw in a lot of pandemic stuff, and I keep revising them. And this one's a mythological one, so it won't go out of style because it's mythological. It doesn't have politics in it. And a friend of mine used it on his blog because he wrote about his trip to Greece and he thought it would fit. And then someone wants to publish this series, so I want to do like a little micro chap. I have about eight or 10 poems. I should write more. Anyway, enough for the introduction. And it was modeled after Anne Waldman's Fast-Speaking Woman. So it's very redundant. It uses anaphora, which is the device of repetition at the beginning of a line. I am the girl with the mythological ethos. I am the girl with a soft spot for Eros. I am the girl who won't sleep with Narcissus. I am the girl who has slept with Echo. I am the girl who breaks glass with Dionysus. I am the girl who has drunk the fine nectar. I am the girl who hangs out with Hermes. I am the girl who's as lame as Hephaestus. I am the girl who writes odes to Hades. I am the girl who combs Medusa's hair. I am the girl who calls Zeus her father. I am the girl with 2 Achilles heels. I am the girl who meditates with Pandora. I am the girl who edited the Odyssey. I am the girl who has reached Mount Olympus. I am the girl who turns gods into poems. Thank you.
That's awesome. And I so want to be the girl who combs Medusa's hair. Life goal unlocked. Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. I am coming to you, Cal.
Thank you. I picked this one because of the current weather. There's been a lot of that. Now oh, here we go. It's called Snow. In the city, a visual treat washes dirt from air, melts and freezes again to distillates of coal. In the town, a quiet intruder insulates inhabitants from street sounds as maple and elm leaves do in summer. In the country, whipping across fields, each lonely house a cozy fortress. Windows steam with warm children, dreams of tomorrow, a siren at dawn, signal of unexpected joy. Thank you. And could you take a look in chat? I put a couple of announcements in there about a magazine that I just took over and a reading that's a week from Sunday. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, you can repost it. That way it's right there. And make sure you check the chat section, Cal.
Good idea.
I'm coming. Thank you. Coming to you, Donna. Here we go.
I may have read this one some time ago. You can go ahead and accuse me of ageism, and it is a bit of a political poem. I turned 73 in March. Weeknights, my husband and I play Jeopardy, see answers in visions of thought. Can't remember the words. Last night he mentioned that senator from Florida. Neither of us could remember the name. We started our password routine. He's Republican, ran in a presidential primary. Trump made fun of him for drinking water. Parents were from Cuba, you know. My husband says his name starts with M. I say R. Google search senators from Florida. My brain hollers out a name before I finish looking it up. I called my mother this afternoon. She can't remember what she ate for lunch, but it was good, she says, then asks if I'm married. Today I think of sand mandalas, how nothing is planned, how it all just happens, then goes away, how each holy circle is precious and alive.
I love that last line. That is gorgeous. Thank you. And the password routine and the trying to recall things, come on.
I know my husband and I now, when we can't remember something, all we say is Marco Rubio.
Yeah, I think keeping a good humor for that is a good thing. I'm gonna take that lead. It's just, I don't know that I want to say that word out loud. It might be like Beetlejuice. Jonathan, I'm coming to you, and then I have Kathy as our finale.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jonathan. Helene, it was wonderful to hear you. Terrific reading, and I'm very happy to be part of this group. I actually live in New York City, and actually I met Helene years ago at a reading that was called the Wordshed NYC reading series, and Helene read, and she was amazing. So the poem I have is a poem that I wrote in December of 2023 and actually got published in April of 2024. It is a political poem about poetry, and it is dedicated to the Palestinian Gazan poet Mossab Abu Toha. The title will tell you what kind of poem it is. It's called Anti-Ars Poetica. There is no poetry in a shrapnel wound that refuses to heal. No enjambment in a lifelong amputation. No metaphor inside the guns aimed and trigger cocked. No simile flies from the aerial carpet bombings. No alliteration as tank tracks cross border lines. No allegory hidden in a drone's surveillance. Mines laid like buried, exclamation points, echo, ceasefires. Like a comma before the ultimate question mark, elegies lead to the periods noted, sentences cut short in each side's burial grounds. Thank you.
Wow.
Damn. Very powerful, Jonathan. Very important. I'm glad that it was published. And I'm glad you read it tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. You're welcome. I'm glad to be part of this group and was able to read. Thanks.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I checked the chat section, Jonathan. There's a whole bunch of messages going to you. Kathy, I am coming to you. Give me just one moment. Where'd you go? Oh, there you go. Sorry.
I'm here. Thank you.
Welcome. I'm glad you're going to read.
Thank you. This is my first time joining you, and it's been a real treat. So thank you. This is called Divinations 1. Live for yourself and you'll live in vain. Live for others and you'll live again. By Bob Marley. Pull the cards and see what the future holds, unless you don't believe, and then it's just a story. A story that may divine your path anyway. Suggestion is a power of unknown, just as courage is a virtue, but carefully measured, else it becomes recklessness. Act like you already have the virtues you want. Take the middle way, the golden mean, as per Aristotle's prescription for a life well lived. Travel from ancient Greece to modern tarot via the ruinously young Bob Marley, and you may find truth. 13 is a lucky number if you add the digits 1 and 3 equals 4-leaf clover, unless you're Chinese and are feared of the sound of death. But what is death, except a meeting with the divine, living in and with dichotomy, doing it all on blind faith, in a carefully measured, reckless act to feel joy, jaded sorrow, 1 for luck, 2 for a boy, until you step on a crack or cross a ley line and feel the divine shiver up your back. Spy a black cat, eyes aglow with a joker's gaze, and know you are a queen of hearts transcending the cards of fate. A little too much, but still not enough.
Excellent. A little too much, but still not enough. That's fabulous. Once again, I'll say it. Excellent open mic. Thank y'all for bringing the fire. Yep, that is gorgeous. Make sure, Kathy, I'm going to give you a moment so you can check the chat section. Wow. Helene, thank you so very much. And everybody here, thank you for holding space, being the community, making it possible.
Amazing. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Thank
Cindy just
you.
reminded us, everyone send your poems that are short, 16 lines or fewer, to her journal, First Literary Review East. Make sure you grab that website. And if you
And I
don't get
need
it,
you, Malika. I don't think you've ever.
pull something out. I don't think I have yet, but I've been sending submissions out, Cindy.
You know,
So thank you for that reminder.
I want the chance to reject your work. No.
You know, maybe then I'll start my Bastards of Redheaded Stepchild magazine, lit magazine for the.
I just read the current issue.
Oh yeah, it's the new one's coming out. I'm this close, this close. Thank you guys. Welcome to 2025. May we hold each other with compassion. All right.
Wonderful host.
Easy peasy, because look at y'all. All I have to do is sit here. Thank you, Karen, for once again co-hosting. See y'all next week.